Welcome back. Today we have a new story from our Tales Written in Blood series, where we look at real places, true history and genuine hauntings through the eyes of our fictional paranormal investigators, Sam, Meg and George. As the summer holidays are nearly here, this is a good time to investigate the history of your own town and look for haunted locations. Ask parents, grandparents, teachers or adults you know who might be able to tell you a story or two. The Case of St. Laurence Church and a girl named Fanny Adams. You want to know what horror is? True horror is history. Our history. The history of any town is written in blood. The signs are all around, like holes in a church door from muskets fired long ago, or the gravestone of a child cruelly murdered on a Saturday afternoon in 1867. The longer a town's history, the bloodier it is. We return to a town we visited before, where a spectral black dog reminds us that the past is not gone, but still here with us. A town where people are born and work and live and die, and the world moves on. But not us. There's still more to see in this sleepy little town. It still has a ghost or two to show. We begin our tale outside a church where one adult and 3 children stand. When a church is old, and most are, they've been around long enough for things to happen to them and in them and around them. Babies are christened inside, couples are married, funerals are held. The full cycle of life and death can be seen within their walls. Ben Proctor was pointing out the holes left in the ancient wooden door, holes left over from the English Civil War. These were made December of 1643 in the Battle of Alton. What made them? Asked George as he ran his fingertips over the small craters. Lead fired from muskets. The parliamentarians led a surprise attack against a royalist garrison. The Earl of Crawford, along with his cavalry, fled to Winchester, leaving Colonel Bowles and his infantry to defend the town. Being desperate and outnumbered, Bowles and his men took refuge in the church, where they made their final stand. Despite a heroic effort and felling many of his enemy, Colonel Bowles was killed along with his men inside. Mr. Proctor gestured to the church, which from outside looked like any other. Grey stone walls with a gentle sloping roof, and a tall thin spire pointing up to the sky. The main building was surrounded by neatly trimmed grass, and as you'd expect, a gravestone or two. The few gravestones around the church were very old, sticking out from the ground like rotten old teeth. They were dotted here and there or bunched together, seemingly without any rhyme or reason. Once the latch was lifted, the heavy door swung open with surprising ease, and the building seemed to sigh as though it had been holding its breath, just waiting for people to bring life and energy back again. Despite the rows of dark wooden benches, the room was light and airy, with sunlight streaming in through the multicoloured stained glass window at one end. Footsteps echoed on the cold stone floor as the children investigated. Ben Proctor closed his eyes and breathed deeply. "What is it, Dad?" asked Sam. "Just taking in the atmosphere. Try it. Close your eyes and just listen." As the children stopped where they were, a silence again settled inside the building. "Can you smell the smoke of musket fire and gunpowder?" For a moment Sam actually thought that he could detect some smoke in the air. "And can you hear the ringing of swords, clashing violently, shouts and screams of men fighting and dying, and the echoes of iron-studded leather boots on the stone floor. The children could imagine all this and more as the chaos of battle played out all around them, but as they opened their eyes they were brought back to the present and the light and peace of the church that seemed very much a building alive with memories. When they left the church, Ben led them down a narrow path behind the small graveyard. They walked between houses just off the beaten track, hidden away from the main high street where they'd visited the Crown Hotel. The children chatted as they followed one by one behind Sam's father, who paused and stepped aside for a group of cyclists. The adults, all wearing bright high-vis vests and safety helmets, gave their thanks as they passed in single file, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. Soon the houses and roads fell away until they were confronted with hop fields and green meadows. The walking path continued, joining one field to the next. Wildflowers grew, and Meg spotted a small girl in a white dress, alone by an old oak tree. At the sound of a small dog barking, Meg turned, and when she looked back, the girl was gone. Just the old tree remained. They saw plenty of people on the path, dog walkers, joggers, more cyclists, families with pushchairs and young children trailing behind. Twice Meg thought she saw the girl in the white dress, just a flutter out of the corner of her eye, as though the girl was skipping through the tall grass. When they arrived at a small stream, the children tramped over the wooden walkways and leaned in looking for fish and other wildlife. Further down, a dog was running up the bank and shaking off water, covering its owner in a shower of small droplets. Mr. Proctor sat on a bench, and when the children were ready, he told them all about the Adams girl. She had been playing with two friends somewhere nearby this very spot. A stranger approached them and offered to pay the girl money to go with him, but she said no. Growing angry, he took her by the wrist and dragged her away from her friends. The girl was never seen alive again, and the man, a local clerk, was soon arrested. His shirt sleeves were stained with blood. "How long did he go to prison?" George asked. "Not very long," replied Ben Proctor, as this took place in 1867, and back then murder could mean the death penalty. After the trial, the man was hanged outside Winchester Prison on Christmas Eve. This was the last public execution to take place in Winchester. It's said that the ghost of that poor 8-year-old child still haunts the place where she died, and that every now and then she can be seen playing in the fields just as she had when she was alive.